Káàbọ̀. Welcome back to Osha Speaks. Hopefully, last week I gave you some great takeaway information for you to apply in your daily life and to start to have a renewed perspective of reality. And with that new perspective, slowly start to usher in change that will help us live the life that we know that we were born to live. May today's class be an addition to your newfound perspective, and let's slowly start to peel the onion, to start to remove the layers of the previous preconceived notions that we may have acquired about different types of philosophical orientation about how the world works, and to slowly start to remove the Western influences and have a renewed sense of spirituality and a renewed sense of basically reality. A great place to start is to consider clay and ceramics. Let's visualize that we're going inside of a classroom and we may see clay around on the tables, and then we can probably see items that were formed from clay. So we may see vases, bowls, animals, figurines, and some abstract pieces. Then you can probably take a look and see a kiln. So we have clay, things that are unformed, we have things that are formed, and then we have this process or this energy that fortifies those unformed things into formed things. Reality is alike like that. Take a look outside, take a look in nature, or even around in your room. You may see things that are formed, things that are objective things. And all objective things, even from contemporary inventions, start with a subjective thought. Things in reality, things that were made, natural things that were made from a process of creation from abstraction and creation from the subjective. The source of reality is the subjective. So consider that the next time someone may get you upset, or consider that you may experience something that is stressful. We may have difficulties with our children, difficulties with your spouse, difficulties with a colleague, or just general hardships of the day. Would it do us any good by emoting and putting too much energy into things that are already created, for they are already there? It will be a waste of our time. It will be best to redirect our energy and our thinking towards this objective, to create and to start to manifest things that we would like to experience. For the things are in the objective are already here. And putting too much stress and energy is not going to do anything about our situation. Before going a little bit too further into that notion there, I think a good place to start is the cosmological doctrine of Kemet. But let's think about that in relation to the Yoruba. Some of us could be from Isheshe. We may have some brothers and sisters from Ewe or Fon, or some brothers and sisters from Akan. Nonetheless, if you study some of the Ese it explicitly implies certain types of animals and fruits, vegetables that are no longer in existence. It is an oral account of things that are now extinct. So this gives you an idea of how old some of these essays, poems are. And when they think about the political organizational structure of the Yoruba, sometimes archaeologists and historians, they're unable to retrace ancient lineages, and they can start in contemporary times, such as 500 BCE or 300 BCE, which is still relatively recent. And if we have essays that speak about extinct animals, and then we have political structure that can't go that far back, that brings up a couple of notions. So one is that either A, which there's genetic confirmation, there's oral confirmation, there's ritual and linguistic confirmation and evidence that states that the Yoruba, just as the Akan, as the Dogon, as the Ewe, migrated from southeast Africa up to Northeast Africa, later to the West. Or B is that these kingdoms were a lot more expansive in the past to what they are now, to where they stretched upon further than what geography tells us now. And of course, this is way before the Berlin Conference, when you have Europeans sticking their business into Africa and started carving out what pieces and what countries are similar to what the map looks like today. But it's interesting to note that Knesset or Katnit, which is pre-colonial Sudan, which is the birth of the culture of the North in Kemet. Everything started in Sudan and Knesset, then it moved to Kemet. But it's really interesting to note that the facial marks of the Africans in Knesset are identical to the facial marks of those of Oyo. About 85 or 90% of the art in the history in Knesset is destroyed, gone, or stolen. But that's a different topic. So that's the reason why I'm mentioning some of their oral literature. The oldest religious doctrine, or the oldest religious doctrine that has survived or released to the general public, is the Mer text of Per A Unas, which is translated to the pyramid text of King Unas. And this has one of the most monumental, outstanding statements about African religion. So you would have Western Egyptologists that can go and they can translate documents without fail, no issues or whatnot. But it seems that all Egyptologists all seem to have this problem about translating just this one particular utterance, which is utterance 301 in the pyramid text. And I find that a little skeptical. Nonetheless, this statement says, and I'm paraphrasing off from memory, it says, O you, Amen, O you, Amenad. You both have your loaf of bread, and you are with the deities in their shade. That right there is just so outstanding. And the reason why is that from the very beginning in African culture, we never believed in monotheism, and that what individuals think God is, quote unquote God is, because recall that that same entity does not exist in African religion, is that it is actually a interdependent unit between a masculine force and a feminine force. That right there is just so mind-blowing. All too often, Western religion and culture is conditioning our thinking, and they are controlling the way that we think about the world. For an example, we have patriarchy that states that, you know, the succession of kingship should go through the man, that there's one God and God is a man, and it's just heavily masculine, centrist in their philosophy, which slowly starts to degrade, or it demotes women down as is their subordinate to men. And that's a part of Western philosophy. So now we have in this contemporary philosophy is that in Western thought, of course, is this cultural, religious, spiritual feminism, that everything came from the great woman, everything came from the great goddess. Men can't speak to this great goddess, and it's the great goddess is returning to feminine that's just in control of complete nature, the totality of creation, and so forth. So both of those are Eurocentric, and both of those don't make any sense. Just as you were born from a mother and a father, you have a masculine and a feminine source. And if we continue to be persuaded or continue to feed into Western philosophy, we'll just keep doing circles and circles around, not getting any further in where we began. So this statement proves that. Now we have Olorun is being revered as Amen, and Olokun is revered as Amenet. Just as you have Mahu and Lisa and Elwe, as you have Mnyamewa, Mnyame, in Akan, Olorun, Olokun, Yoruba, Amin, Aminet. And they all have the similar definitions, the similar descriptive titles, and similar functions. And as we move forward, I want to touch on when we speak about deities and we speak about Orisa, just understand that a deity is the intelligence and force behind a specific instance of a natural phenomena. And some of these things are specific to locale. There are things that we see that's specific on where we're located. And we may have a different name of calling it, a different name of invoking it, but it's one verifiable thing, one verifiable energy that we may have different names of calling it, depending on our ancestral African clan. But we'll get a little bit more into that next class. I want to call up a Odu from Obatala, and this essay is about an individual that is expressing so much gratitude about blessings that came from the Orun. And it says, the Orun above, we thank you, we thank you. The Orun above, we thank you, we thank you. So this is slowly start to add a little bit of validity of where things come from and how can we start to create a better life. Everything starts in the subjective. Everything comes from the Orun, and the Orun is the spirit world. The Orun is not only, it's not a chaotic place, it's not just a place that we just reside that just doesn't have any order, but the Olorun is it's the consciousness, it is the energy, and it's the force behind the conglomerate layers of the supernatural world, of the spirit world. And they're not just one. Before going a little bit further, I want to pull up a poem that I heard, and this was a book that I came across in an old anthropology textbook, and I was actually surprised that they had anything Yoruba in there. And the Odu wasn't mentioned, and we have to do a little bit more research and confirming to see if this was actually a real, authentic essay Ifa. However, the information that was in that essay seemed verified, it seemed authentic, and I think that it is a verified essay. So this states that there was a competition between Olorun and Olokun, and they were trying to see which one was the most beautiful between the two. And in the end, it was Olorun that won because Olokun was just a reflection of Olorun. Olokun is the deity that is of the one world ocean, not to be confused with Yemoja. Yemoja is the deity of the Ogun River, and not to be confused with the Atlantic Ocean, because of course we did not partition the ocean as Western geographers do today. It is a one world ocean. So we have the ocean, Olokun anthropomorphized as the ocean, and then we have Olokun anthropomorphized as the ocean, and Olorun anthropomorphized as the sky. So the water is just reflecting the sky. There are several different statements all throughout different cultures that bring up the same sentiments. As above, so below, in your mind, in your reality, or as on earth as it is in heaven. So it's speaking about this consistency of what is in the Orun should be in your physical reality. What most people think God is, and again, if we want to use that term, considering that entity just does not exist in our culture, but when people are thinking about that individual, as we're being persuaded to think that, that God, that Olorun is God or whatnot, is that we're only speaking about two phases of reality. We have the subjective realm and the objective realm. The subjective realm and the objective realm form a continuum, and we actually exist in both realms simultaneously. So let me repeat that and let that marinate for a second. is that what most people think is God is speaking about two different phases of reality, a subjective realm and an objective realm. And we exist in both realms simultaneously. Now, there are seven different realms of the Orun, and I have not confirmed this in contemporary Orisa practice, but in those of Kemet and Knesset in East Africa, they state that there's actually 14 different realms of the material world, and we exist inside both simultaneously, and the objective realm and the subjective realm form a continuum. So considering that is we have the power to take charge of our own lives. If things start in the subjective realm and if things start with thought, is that by changing the way that we think and by engaging in the immaterial world, by engaging with the clay, we can slowly start to form new things, new relationships, new people, new chances for wealth, new chances for living our goals, and we could put that through a kiln, and then we can have our own vase or we can have our own items. That is the most important aspect about spirituality, is that it has nothing to do with anybody else. Our reality is our reality, and we're responsible for it. We can no longer continue to blame anyone else for our shortcomings in our life. If we were born into something, we may not know what we did on the previous incarnation. If we had a situation with a spouse to where they acted a certain way, where they did something to us, if we lost our job, if we are experiencing a lot of hardships, we are responsible for everything that happens in our lives. And that is a tough pill to swallow, and I swallowed it, brothers and sisters. So I say this from experience. If we know how to manipulate that thought or that spirit force, we can slowly start to create a better life for us. So consider that the thought, the subjective realm, is like the sperm, this unseen subjective white essence that comes through and goes into fertile ground, fertile land, and that fertile ground and that fertile land produces that wealth. So we have two different phases and two different entities that is taking place in this procreative ritual. As above, so below. So if we were born by two physical parents, then we must have been born by two subjective spiritual parents as well. Now, this comes across a theory that I was reading about string theory. And hopefully that when you all start to learn more about African religion and how we see the world, is that it can give you a sense of validity that our ancestors were actually quite wise. And it seems that we can look at things from astrophysicists and other scientists, and we can give them the benefit of the doubt that they know what they're talking about, through their verbiage, through their literature, and their technology. But at the same time, it is our culture and our practice that gave birth to what individuals think science is. So I can probably talk to you about, Olokun and personal manifestation. I can speak to you about creating, your own reality. And you may think maybe this brother's kind of off. It sounds like some new age stuff. But if I'll talk to you about, quantum physics, string theory, and 8A theory of everything, then that would sound like I have a little bit more validity, like I know what I'm talking about. In actuality, the sciences were birthed from what we created in Africa, in our African perspective, our African culture. And I ask for you to have an open mind and continue to do your research, and you'll see where everything started. So to go back, in the definitions between Amen, which is consistent with Olorun, is the great hidden one, the hidden one locked in the sky, the one not easily accessible to the public. It's describing the spirit world. Olorun is the owner of the Orun. It also has different definitions like the bow, the land above the firmament, and it's speaking about the sky. So it's an analogy for the spirit world. Olokun, depending on the marks for Okun, can mean strength, force, twist, to bind, to rope, to intertwine, the rope maker. And then, of course, Okun is the ocean. So those same descriptive titles for strength, power, to twine, to twist, the rope maker with Amenet is the exact identical to Olokun. And this brings up the validity to where Western scientists got string theory and 8A, the theory of everything, the theory of physical reality. So let's say, for an example, my reality, I believe that I have to get a good government job to be successful. People think that studying African religion full time is nonsense and you won't be able to make a living. So my reality is that I'm going to be PHR certified, work for human resources, and get good benefits and retire. So I'm on that one string. So while I'm on that string, it's going to branch off to connect me with someone else who knows, who has a manual for the PHR certification. It's going to branch me off with someone else who can give me a good job working for the federal government. And it's going to branch off to more and more people that's going to further support that belief structure that I believed. So it's branching off, making different ropes, different connection points to bring me that wealth of reality that I thought was achievable. But while I'm going on that route, let's say I came across another brother or sister and she told me about Isheshe and told me more about my culture. So I thought to myself, well, wow, maybe I don't want to do human resources anymore. I want to study to be a traditional herbalist. And so when I jump off of that path, it's slowly going to start to branch off to other people and other individuals to help me on that path. So I may have came across a sister from a Galagichi tribe. I may come across another brother from Oyo who knows about traditional herbology. I may come across another diviner who can teach me how to divine Eridilagun. I may come across someone else who can hook me in with the RA of Obatala and help me with consecration. So I just branched a new reality from a pre-existing string. I hope this is starting to become a little bit clear. The theory of 8-8 or the theory of everything is based on strings, and it's based on the fact that these thoughts can come and germinate in our physical reality, and this womb or this entity of wealth, this entity that just creates, this entity that gives birth to so many children or give birth to so many opportunities is creating different possibilities and different realities. And brothers and sisters, I think that this is one of the esoteric theories about the wealth of Olokun, or how Olokun speaks with illusion, or how Olokun is trying to bring wealth to different people, but they're disillusioned. How Olokun is about children, saving the children, and bringing more children into the world. They're speaking about the possibilities of creating different realities that we can branch off and create a whole new life, and is contingent upon the thoughts that we keep. And this theory of illusion, it's so prevalent in the SAE5. Now, I haven't came across any Olokun Orikis or Olokun Pipe. I'm not sure what her orature is called, but in Ifa, it brings up this notion of illusion. Oyeku Obi is about Olokun and the fisherman, and it was someone who was so disillusioned. This individual came from poverty. This individual was blessed so much with money and riches, but they were so disillusioned, thinking that they had to do something else when they already had all the wealth that was right there in front of them, and they were trying to do or create an invention that was going to cause harm to the environment. There's another essay called Ofun, from the Odu, Ofun Meiji, and that speaks about how Olokun wanted to be the largest body of water. And remember, brothers and sisters, is that we did not have this partitioned idea of the ocean. There was not an Atlantic, a Pacific, Indian, Arctic. It was just one world ocean. So Olokun seemed as if she was disillusioned, wanted to be something when she already was. She was already the largest ocean. Irasun Onifa, and it speaks about how Olokun was seeking divination again and still wanted to be that largest body of water, even though she was already the largest body of water. Otua Riko is the same thing. Olokun was lamenting the fact that she wasn't big enough. Ofunagbi is an essay that speaks about Olokun seeking divination, and that she was one of the richest, wealthiest Orisa, second to her daughter Aje. And when she went for divination, she had a hard time because individuals knew when she showed up, she had all the money, she could pay for it. So she disguised herself as a, I guess you can say, a crazy woman, tied her baby on upside down and was in rags to give us type of illusion so that people wouldn't abuse her or people wouldn't start to take advantage of her richness. So she was using this illusion to test the convictions of people. So all of this is speaking about, in my interpretation, is that the physical reality at times we can be disillusioned. Is that we could either have everything that we need in front of us, but it's based on a faulty perspective. That Olokun, this deity of just massive wealth, this deity that gives, this deity that takes the thoughts, that takes our ideas and can give birth to different realities and can give birth to different scenarios that we can experience and start to enjoy our lives. So with this piece of knowledge considered, is that we can no longer move forward and start to have this victim mentality. We can no longer blame individuals for what we have not achieved. We cannot blame anyone for our shortcomings in life. Everything that we had, we are 100% totally responsible for. And like I reiterate, it's a tough pill to swallow. I have swallowed it myself, and we have to be accountable. There's no room for, I guess, a non-accountable perspective in spirituality or African religion. And if individuals do so, that still kind of proves some of that toxic mentality that individuals had not shaved off yet. So I urge you to take a look at the things in your life and slowly start to become accountable for each shortcoming that we have. Things that we want to achieve, things that we want to experience. No one can change that but us. And consider that everything starts in the subjective. Everything starts in the immaterial. And if we slowly want to start to create a better life for us, we can't fret over things that we see in the material. We can't let the things that are already existing get us off of our path. Those things already exist, and becoming upset about it, becoming angry about it, isn't going to do anything. Going and confronting somebody about it, or quote unquote, individuals want to get closure, that's not going to do anything about it. That didn't create it. Your conditioned thoughts, your consistent belief structure slowly starts to take hold of inanimate objects. You can animate inanimate things. And if you think not true, then why do we, if I'm saying things that aren't true, then why are we wearing our, perspective Orisha beads? How do we have icons that at one point that was inanimate, now they're animated? So your thoughts can animate your environment, your home, your clothes, your jewelry, your personal atmosphere, which we'll get into in the next couple of episodes. And the more that you think a certain way, you're starting creating those different branches. Remember the string theories, right? You're creating different segues to create different realities that are consistent upon what you think. So it also recalls the old saying that the elders used to say, you have to fake it until you make it, And if there's something that you want to have or something that you want to achieve, all you have to do is to keep and hold on to those thoughts. Thoughts of health, thoughts of wealth, thoughts of peace, thoughts of tranquility. Everything starts with a thought. And just like how the RA told me, as I shared with you all last week, is that don't rely too much on herbs, talisman, medicine, and magic. It is Obatala that will make you successful. And again, to translate, is that pure thoughts and pure character is the best medicine that one could ever have. And I'll leave you with that, and I'll see you soon. Ariel Odaro.